Here's a question I want you to think about. Do you actually know what your leader needs from you? Not what your job description says, not what your performance review measures, but what your leader, the specific human being above you at work, actually needs from you in the day to day reality of their role. Because most professionals are focused on meeting expectations, working hard, delivering reliably, staying in their lane, but they've never stopped to ask, what does this leader actually need? And those two things, meeting expectations and meeting real needs, can look really similar from the outside, but they produce very different career outcomes. So, I'm going to give you the four things that leaders actually need from the people around them. Almost nobody tells you this stuff, and almost nobody thinks to deliver it intentionally. So, let's dive in. Here's the gap that I see all the time. The professional thinks if I do good work and I stay reliable, I'm doing my job. The leader is thinking something totally different. The leader is thinking, can I trust this person with complexity? Can they think ahead? Can they reduce my cognitive load, or do they add to it? And those are not the same questions. And if you're answering the first set and your leader is asking the second set, then you have an expectation gap. And that gap is going to shape how you're perceived and how much you're trusted and how ready for advancement you seem like you are. In the early 2000s, researchers at the Center for Creative Leadership, they were really trying to figure out something about leadership derailment, specifically why leaders who seemed solid at one level consistently struggled when they were promoted. They'd been studying this for years. They had data on thousands of leaders across dozens of organizations, and the patterns they'd found around skills and behaviors were useful, but they felt like they were missing something. So they changed the question. And instead of asking, what do derailing leaders lack? They started asking the leaders above them, what were you actually hoping for from this person that you weren't getting? And the answers that came back were very consistent across organizations and industries and levels. The leaders above weren't primarily focused and frustrated by poor execution. They weren't most bothered by missed deadlines or imperfect work. What they kept describing in different words, but with striking consistency, was a feeling that the people that they had promoted were still thinking and operating from the level below. They were waiting to be told what to do instead of anticipating what was needed. They were escalating problems instead of coming with solutions. They were adding to the decision load instead of reducing it. They needed to be managed at a level where they were supposed to be managing. The researchers called it a failure of level transition, the ability to shift not just what you do, but how you think when you move into a more senior role. And the implications for anyone who wants to advance are significant because the leaders above you are not primarily evaluating your output. They're evaluating how you make them feel about the organization when you're involved. Do they feel more settled and more clear and more confident? Or do they feel like they need to manage more closely and explain more thoroughly and check in more often? And that feeling, that subjective human experience of working with you, it's one of the most powerful drivers of promotion decisions, and almost nobody talks about it. So here's the gap, really concretely. You think the job is do good work, be reliable, deliver on time. Your leader is asking, can I hand this person something complex and messy and trust that they're going to bring it back with clarity? Can they handle the situations that I don't have time to manage? Do they make my world easier or harder? The professionals who get promoted are the ones who, over time, shift from being people their leader manages to being people their leader relies on. And that is a fundamentally different relationship, and it does not happen accidentally. So let's look at the four things that your leader, really needs. Four things. Every leader I've worked with, coached, studied, really needs these, even if they've never articulated them this explicitly. The first thing is they need clarity. It's like, tell me what matters fast. Leaders are managing enormous amounts of complexity, competing priorities, shifting information, decisions that need to be made without all the complete data. And what they need from the people around them is not more information. They need better organized information. So when you come to your leader with an update or a request or a problem, the most valuable thing you can do is to make it immediately clear. What is the essential thing here? What do you need to know? What, if anything, do you need to decide, you as the leader? The professional who buries those important things in 3 paragraphs of context is making their leader's job harder. But the professional who leads with the headline, one sentence, clear, direct, they are doing something genuinely valuable. They're protecting their leader's cognitive bandwidth. And leaders notice that. They trust it. They seek it out. It's a relief for them, and it's something that they come to rely on. So you want to start every significant communication with the most important thing. Don't start with the background. Don't start with the context. Start with the thing. The second thing is they need from you is judgment. They're thinking, help me make better decisions. Because here's what your leader's day actually looks like at a senior level. It is a continuous stream of decisions, and many of them are undetermined, meaning there isn't a clear right answer. There's incomplete information, and the call has to be made anyway. So what leaders need from the people around them is not just execution on the decisions they've already made. It's help thinking through the decisions that haven't been made yet. And this means coming to your leader, not just with problems, but with your read of the situation, your assessment of the options, your recommendation. You're not going to say, we have a problem with the vendor timeline. What do you want to do? You're going to say, we have a problem with the vendor timeline. Here are 3 options as I see them, and here are the trade-offs, and here's what I recommend. Do you agree, or is there something I'm missing? That's it. And that second version, that's a very different level of contribution. It shows that you can think through complexity, not just identify it. And every time you show that, you're building the kind of trust that eventually becomes, I don't need to be in that meeting. Just tell me what you decided and why. And when they trust you at that level, they're trusting you at a leadership level. And that is only going to do great things for your career. And that's the relationship that you want to build towards. The third thing they need from you is ownership. They're thinking, don't wait, drive it. This is all about initiative. And it's about what you do in the space between being given an assignment and reporting back on it. Most professionals fill that space with execution. They do what they were asked to do. They come back when it's done. Rising leaders fill that space differently. They anticipate. They flag issues before they become problems. They look around corners, essentially. And they come back not just with what they were asked to deliver, but they come back with something like, okay, while I was working on this, I noticed something else that you should probably know about. Ooh, that behavior, that proactive, ahead of the curve ownership, that is one of the most powerful signals of leadership readiness there is, because it says this person is not just executing my instructions, they are thinking about the organization. And leaders feel the difference between someone who needs to be managed and someone who manages every single day. And you may be someone who does not have an official leadership title yet and thinking, yep, this episode is just for people like me. Look, I work with so many leaders who need to work on these same things. They are already in those leadership positions and sometimes in quite higher level leadership positions. And if that's you, you know what I'm talking about, that this is still something we tend to want to get dragged down into that execution. We tend to think, all right, just about the task, and we don't think about that ahead of the curve thinking. And yet, that is something, if we want to be effective as leaders and we want to grow up through into and through leadership, this is essential. The fourth one is as well. This is the fourth area that your leader really needs from you, and that is calm under pressure. They are looking for you to be that steadiness in the room, the stable sense in the room, the stable force in the room. It's certainly not to be the one to add to the chaos. So this shows up in promotions way more than people realize. Research from the Center for Creative Leadership is very unambiguous on this. Emotional regulation is one of the top predictors of perceived leadership readiness. It's not intelligence. It's not technical skill. It's the ability to remain steady and clear headed, solution focused, grounded when everything around you is not that way at all. Because here's what pressure reveals: it strips away the professional polish and it shows people who you actually are under stress. And leaders watch for this constantly, not always consciously, but consistently. The person who, when a crisis hits, becomes reactive, escalates quickly, shows their anxiety very visibly, fires off those urgent emails and calls the emergency meetings, versus the person who, when the same crisis hits, takes a breath, assesses, and says, here's what I know, here's what I don't know yet, and here's what I'm doing about it. Those two people are sending completely, fundamentally different signals about what more responsibility would look like if it was placed in their hands. I want to share something a senior leader said to me once about a member of her team. She was describing to me why she kept putting this person on the most complex, highest stakes initiatives. She said, when things get complicated, and things always get complicated, I feel better when she's involved. That's it. That's the whole thing. I feel better when she's involved. That is the relationship that every rising leader should be building with the people above them. Not they're reliable, not they deliver, but I feel better when they're in it. Because that feeling, that confidence, that settled assurance, that is built not just through execution, that is built through clarity and judgment and ownership and calm that you deliver consistently over time. So here's a practice. We've talked about these four areas that your leader needs. I want to give you a practice that's simple, but it's genuinely going to change how you show up. Before any significant interaction with your leader, a meeting, an update, a request, a tough conversation, ask yourself this one question: what does this leader need from me right now? Not, what do I need to tell them? Not, what am I going to report? Not, how do I cover myself here? It's, what do they need? Do they need clarity? The headline, fast, without excessive preamble. Do they need your judgment, your read of the situation and your recommendation? Do they need ownership to know that you have this, you're driving this, they don't need to think about it? Do they need calm, a steady, grounded presence that makes a difficult situation feel more manageable? It's just think about those four areas. What do they need? One question, and ask yourself this before you walk in the room. And then, also before you walk in the room, shape everything you're about to say or do around that answer. So here's what it looks like in practice. Let's say you have an update to give on a project that has hit a snag. Now, your default version would have been so. I just want to give you a heads up. We've run into a few challenges with the timeline, and I've been trying to figure out the best path forward, but I wanted to loop you in before making any decisions. Blah, blah, blah. Does not land in the way you want it to land as a rising leader. Instead, you're going to say to your leader, the version that's built around what that leader actually needs, which is this, something like this. Quick update. We have a timeline risk on the project. Here's what caused it. Here's what I recommend we do. And here's the one decision that I need from you before I move forward. It's the same situation. One of those versions makes your leader's day easier, and the other one just adds to their load. You want to be the one, you want to be the person who makes it easier every time. Leaders don't promote effort. Leaders promote people who make their world easier to navigate. And that is a real mind bender. To get your head around that is your effort is not what's going to get you to the next level. Your ability to make your leader's life easier is what's going to get you to your next level. Because you making their life easier is you showing up as a leader, showing up at that more thoughtful, smart, strategic level. And that's going to make their life easier, and they're going to see you more as that leader who, gosh, is ready for more. So remember, they promote people who make their world easier to navigate. And this is not because they're selfish. This is because senior leadership fundamentally is about making good decisions under pressure at scale. And the people who rise to that level are the ones who have demonstrated repeatedly that they can provide clarity, they can bring sound judgment, they can take genuine ownership, and they can hold steady when things get hard. Those four things are learnable. They're practicable, and you can start delivering them more deliberately, more consistently. You can start in your next conversation. So here's your challenge for this week. What would change if you focused less on doing and you focus more on what your leader actually needs? Sit with that, because for most high performers, the answer is a lot. There's a lot that you would do differently. Now, here's the specific thing I want you to try. Before your next meeting or interaction with your manager, take 60 seconds. Ask yourself, what do they need from me right now? Clarity, judgment, ownership, or calm? And then show up and give them that. Not the update you prepared. Give them the thing that they actually need. Do that consistently, and not once, but as a practice. And I promise you, the way your leader experiences working with you will shift. The trust is going to grow, and that visibility will come for you, because professionals who rise aren't the ones who work hardest for their leaders. They're the ones that their leaders can't imagine doing without, not because of the execution, but because of that strategic support. So go be that person, and I'll see you next week.